Now it looks like the Drake and UMG lawsuit has finally updated. The last time we heard about the lawsuit, UMG had filed a motion to dismiss, and this is basically Drake's lawyer's response to that. He has made a couple points in his response, and we're just going to go over them. Now I'm only going to cover the key things that were talked about in this response. A lot of things are repetitive. A lot of things he had argued the first time, and he kind of just says them again. So I'll only mention the key points in his argument at this time. Now, one thing's for sure, Drake's lawyer is trying to paint Drake as a victim. My issue with that is that Drake was a competitor. Drake was part of the rap beef also. I've said it time and time and again, it takes two to tango. The lawyer tries to paint Drake as a victim after the release of the Not Like Us record. Throughout this whole entire argument, the lawyer fails to bring up or fails to mention that Drake himself also had participated in the rap battle by dropping hyperbolic disses himself. Not one time in this argument that Drake's lawyer had made did he mention Drake's diss tracks or anything like that. Now, granted, it's his lawyer, so I don't think that he would do that. But a lot of points that he's trying to make fail because of that. Now, it says here that the preliminary statement is that the primary question raised by UMG's motion to dismiss is whether Drake's amended complaint plausible alleges a reasonable listener could have concluded that Not Like Us and its accompanying cover art and music video were conveying facts about Drake. The amended complaint does not just allege that reasonable listeners could have reached to that conclusion. It plausibly alleges that millions, in fact, did so. As the amended complaint alleges, the unmistakable messages conveyed by the recording, image, and video is undisputably false allegations that Drake is a certified PDF file. The recording calls for violence against Drake, and the image offers aspiring assailants a map of where to strike, an overhead photograph of Drake's actual Toronto home, plastered with icons known to identify locations of child SOs. Now, my whole problem with this paragraph is like he's saying where to strike. You know, he's trying to act like he's giving people an address, Drake's address, for people to pull up at. And this follows with the next paragraph when he says, UMG's theory is that all of this was hyperbole, a harmless joke that no reasonable person would take seriously because it was part of a rap battle. But UMG's theory collides with the reality that the recording's false allegation of PDF file broadcast to the entire world via the most powerful music company have proven to be toxic, indelible. In other words, UMG just joking narrative runs headfirst into the concrete. Facts alleged in the amended complaint accepted as true as they must be here. The amended complaint allegations established that Not Like Us was not widely understood to be mere hyperbole. Days after UMG published the recording and image, Drake's home was attacked and his security guard was nearly unalive. In the weeks that followed, countless listeners showed that they believed the allegations to be true, as confirmed by the commentators and press that covered the song. Nor can UMG hide behind its hyperbole mantra given its decision. Long after the rap battle had ended, Drake had informed UMG of the substantial harm and the recording had caused to transform false accusations of PDF file into de facto national anthem by using its massive resources to land the recording as the centerpiece of the Super Bowl, the Grammys, and more. Now they're calling Not Like Us the national anthem. That is crazy, bro, to be honest with you. But the whole point right here is that they're trying to say that Kendrick is responsible for Drake's house getting shot up. Now, Young Thug likes to call a lot of people snitches, bro. He likes to call Kid Cudi a snitch, but it's crazy how he keeps his mouth shut for his collaborator, Drake, when Drake is basically, and his lawyer are implying that somebody had shot up Drake's house at the fault of Kendrick Lamar, which is crazy because you can't even prove that that shooting had any relevance to what was going on in the battle. They haven't even found the shooter yet. So why are you going to say that this was targeted after the diss track for Not Like Us? There is no proof because nobody has found the shooter. Nobody has found the person responsible for this. So how can they even run with this narrative when they don't even know if it's true or not? Now, keep in mind, they're saying that they had took a picture of Drake's home for the Not Like Us cover art, trying to incite attackers to go at Drake. But keep in mind that Drake's home has always and constantly been at watch and has always been public knowledge of where he lives. So the fact that Drake's lawyer is trying to hint at the fact that Not Like Us cover art exposed where Drake lived, everybody already knows where Drake lives. Drake's property has been such a problem for other neighbors. They've complained in articles. It's not hard to know where Drake lives. You can literally Google it and it'll tell you where he lives. So I don't think that this is something that really holds any weight. I don't think that saying that the shooters were responsible because of Kendrick Lamar, it doesn't hold any weight because you haven't even found the shooters yet and you haven't even found their real motive. You don't know the real motive of why they did what they did. Let's get back to the point that Drake's lawyer is trying to say that anybody that listened to this record had took it as a factual assertion. They're trying to say that a majority of people that listened to the Not Like Us record had took the information in the record as fact. Now, the only problem with that is, like we said in the previous video, this was hyperbole. This was just Kendrick Lamar's opinion based on things that he saw on the internet. When you see Drake go to high school games for girls, or when you see him with Millie Bobby Brown, or where you see him on stage with that girl that was 71 backwards, these are things that people had noticed, that Kendrick had noticed, that he had came with this hyperbole, that he had came up with this thing that he had said would not like us, right? This is where all that had stemmed from what UMG had said in the previous argument, saying that there's public knowledge of situations involved with Drake and scenarios with youngins that could have made people believe this. But Drake's lawyer is trying to say that people don't think that it's an opinion. Drake's lawyer is basically saying that people who heard Not Like Us had took it as fact. He's trying to imply that a majority of people that heard the record believe it to be true. Now, the only problem with that is, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, if you go down here, if you take a look at the argument that he had made, one of the arguments, he says that the amended complaint adequately pleads defamation. Now, he says that in determining whether allegedly defamatory material is fact or non-actionable opinion, the dispositive inquiry is whether a reasonable listener could have concluded that the statements were conveying facts about the plaintiff. Thus, while the question of whether the words could express the alleged defamatory meaning must be resolved by the court in the first instance, the actual meaning of those words must ultimately be determined in trial. He says, even a cursory review of the allegations in the amended complaint leaves no doubt that the reasonable listeners could have concluded that the defamatory statements asserted factual allegations about Drake. Indeed, unlike UMG's cases here, the amended complaint presents actual evidence that listeners, as well as commentators in rap industry and the press, understood the defamatory statements as an attempt to convey a precise factual message that Drake is a PDF file. This paragraph is implying that Drake and his lawyers are saying that everyone believed it. Everybody believed that he was a PDF file. The commentators, the reviewers, the YouTubers, everybody who listened to this record took it as a factual assertion. But here's my problem with that, though. When you say that everybody took this as fact, there's only one thing that I want to say. And this is something that's going to make a lot of sense. Because where was Drake recently? Drake had surprised Kai Cenat's Streamer University with closing ceremony speech. Now, if you're aware, bro, just using this as an example, Kai Cenat was a commentator in the battle. Kai Cenat had listened to every single song in the beef. You see what I'm saying? He heard Not Like Us. The problem with Drake and his lawyer's argument is that they're saying that people believed it when they heard it. Now, if this is true, then why is Kai Cenat still messing with Drake? Now, this is just an example. You know, you could use anybody that Drake is still talking to after the beef. But this is a really good example because Drake has shown his face to the public, and there's still public figures like Kai Cenat who are still showing love to Drake even after listening to the song, critiquing the battle, and commentating on the song when it first happened. This is a prime example of why what Drake's lawyer is saying is not true. Because if everybody who listened to the track believes it to be fact, then Kai Cenat would not be fucking with Drake in public, and he would not bring him to Streamer University. He would look at it as a bad look, but yet he still chooses to mess with Drake, and Drake is still out here interacting with celebrities, interacting with streamers, as if nothing bad happened. So it's crazy for Drake's lawyer to claim defamation over a song Not Like Us and saying that everybody believed it, when in example, Kai Cenat had heard the record and is still cool with Drake to this day. It doesn't make any sense. Drake is still out here doing things that he normally does. It doesn't look like defamation when you see him out publicly on Kai Cenat's stream. Now, like I said, my whole question is, Drake is still working with people. He has a career, and it doesn't seem like he's canceled. Doesn't that show that people don't believe he's a PDF file? That's my whole question. If Drake is still publicly working, not socially or professionally ostracized, and still has a reputation after the beef, then maybe people didn't take the lyrics literally, is all I'm saying. If he's still on Kai Cenat's stream, if he's still out here, he still has a career, he hasn't been ostracized at all, it really fails at the argument that the lawyer, Drake's lawyer, is trying to make. In my opinion, I didn't pass the bar exam. That's just how I look at it. If everybody that heard Not Like Us, this is going based off the lawyer's argument. If everybody thought that Drake was a PDF file after they heard Not Like Us, he would have been ostracized. He would have been canceled. Nobody wouldn't be working with him, and he wouldn't be doing things with Kai Cenat in front of hundreds and thousands of people for Streamer University. That's just my take. But what do I know? I'm just reading this. I'm not a lawyer. In defamation law, the core issue is how a reasonable listener would interpret the statement. If the average person hears the lyrics and thinks, wow, they're really accusing Drake of being a PDF file, that can be defamatory. If the average person hears it and thinks this is just a rap diss, not a real claim, then it's protected speech. The only problem is you can't go to every single person and ask what they think about the record. This record was played for millions of people for more than 53 weeks. It was on the Billboard. It was constantly being played. It's hard to get an exact thought of what the people think because everybody thinks differently when they hear the record. But the point is that Drake is out here publicly and still looks like he's out here talking to people normally. It doesn't look like the way the lawyer is trying to paint it. There's still people out here, and not me, there's still people out here that still mess with Drake. But this is my point. The fact that Drake is still operating normally, it could undermine the idea that people believe that the lyrics were factual accusations. Another thing that Drake's lawyer did was respond to the amicus brief. He said, amicus brief raises interesting academic issues, but particularly at the pleading stage, offers no guidance for this court. No authority supports the proposition that rap music can never defame a subject of that music, regardless of the actual words and imagery used in the music, the specific context of and around the song of evidence of how listeners actually understood it. And in any event, the motion to dismiss is not appropriate vehicle by which to announce such a sweeping legal policy. Essentially, what Drake's lawyer is saying is that rap music can defame somebody depending on the circumstances. This is what he's saying. Now, this is Hip Hop Police, if I ever saw it. He is saying that rap lyrics and music can defame someone depending on the circumstances. And this is the problem. And this is why the amicus brief was so important. The First Amendment, protecting the First Amendment and protecting rap lyrics and making sure that they're not taken literal in the court of law. Before he says this, he says that the amicus brief isn't fit for the court. He doesn't see the point of them being used in court, which I have to disagree. The amicus brief that had stepped in was trying to defend the First Amendment and tried to educate the court on rap's hyperbole and not to take it literal and not to take rap lyrics literal. But of course, Drake's lawyer is going to say this because he wants to prove that Not Like Us was defamatory. I just don't see him, in my opinion, able to do that. I don't think Drake's lawyer is able to do that at this time, nor will I think he'll be successful. But that's just my opinion. He says Drake publicly denied the allegations and later explained in detail to UMG how the false defamatory statements were causing him severe harm. In response to the plea from its own artist, UMG doubled down on its promotional activities and effectively dared Drake to initiate legal action. UMG campaigned to secure Grammy Awards for the defamatory material. Then, after promoting Lamar as the headliner in the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show, UMG introduced the recording to a new audience of more than 133.5 million people. This includes UMG's pay-for-play scheme to boost recording on the radio, including in New York. My whole issue with this is that when they had submitted the amended complaint, they had took a lot of their argument out in regards to the payola and the pay-for-play, and they added a whole bunch of hyperlinks to Twitter accounts, which I think they had talked about here. It says UMG paid or caused payments to be made to third parties to use bots to artificially inflate the spread of the recording on Spotify, which also took place in New York. A former stream farmer posted a video on X about streaming bot that UMG and Kendrick Lamar used to boost Not Like Us. So they're still going with the pay for play thing. They're going with the payola thing. But in their amended complaint, they removed a lot of their argument and added a lot of hyperlinks. So I don't think that this is going to win. And honestly, the pay for play thing is the last thing that Drake needs to worry about. I think at this point, they haven't gotten enough proof to prove that. And they're still trying to argue that. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Another point that Drake's lawyer is trying to make is that the amended complaint adequately alleges actual malice. UMG addresses actual malice in a single paragraph that merely repackages its opinion and hyperbole arguments. Its argument is meritless. The actual malice standard requires that the plaintiff show that the defendant made the statements at issue with knowledge that the statements were false or with reckless disregard as to their falsity. At the pleadings, malice must be alleged plausibly in accordance with the Rule 8. Therefore, must plead plausible grounds to infer actual malice by alleging enough facts to raise a reasonable expectation that discovery will reveal evidence of actual malice. The motion to dismiss does not dispute that the amended complaint pleads actual malice under these standards. UMG does not contest that it knew the allegations were false. To this day, UMG does not claim that any of the allegations are true. UMG had a financial interest in knowing Drake's liabilities, including charges or convictions, and UMG would have never contracted Drake had it believed that any of the defamatory material was true in any respect. The amended complaint further pleads actual malice based on different points in time when UMG published and continued to publish the defamatory statements, including one after Drake publicly denied the allegations, one day after the initial publication, 2, after Drake's security guard was shot. 3 days after the initial publication. 3, after listeners, music publications, and industry podcasts confirmed the public's understanding of the factual nature of the allegations. And 4, after Drake issued a formal retraction demand detailing the harm caused by the recordings for continuous publication 3 months after the initial publication. UMG argues that the plaintiff must identify specific individuals at UMG that acted with actual malice. In any event, the amended complaint adequately pleads plausible grounds to infer that the requisite mental state of each of Lucian Grange, John Janik, Monte Lippman, and Avery Lippman. The amended complaint pleads that Sir Grange and Mr. Janik were involved in the initial publication of the recording and image, despite knowing that the allegations were unsupported by any evidence and understanding their inherent improbability. The amended complaint further pleads that Sir Grange, Mr. Janik, Monte Lippman, and Avery Lippman played a key role in the initial publication of the video, either in directing or approving the publication and or failing to prevent its publication, knowing that Drake's Toronto home was attacked, knowing that the allegations were unsupported by any evidence and were being believed by the public. And despite the inherent improbability of the allegations, these allegations, combined with other well-pleaded allegations demonstrating that UMG knew the defamatory statements were false, pleads plausible grounds to infer actual malice on the part of UMG. Drake's lawyer trying to say that UMG had acted with malice is crazy to think, because UMG had posted not only Kendrick songs, they had posted Drake songs as well. And it was hard to say that they were acting on malice when all of these songs were dropping one after the other. How is Drake going to drop a song, and then Kendrick drops a song, and then he drops another song, and then 24 hours later, Drake drops his song again? How are they even supposed to keep up with any of that to know that there was any malice? Bro, he's just dropping songs and they're just posting them. So again, Drake's lawyer is trying to prove that UMG had acted out on malice. Now he's mentioning Lucian Grange and John Janik by name and trying to say that they're to blame over there on the side of UMG. He's trying to blame them for making everything happen. But let's just be honest, bro. I do not think that UMG was involved in this beef at the very beginning. They would have had to been involved in this beef in the very beginning if that was the case. But that wasn't at all. Drake was the one that was egging Kendrick on. He was the one that was telling Kendrick to respond, and then Kendrick did respond. How is UMG going to act on malice when Drake was the one provoking Kendrick Lamar to respond? Now that UMG had posted the song, he's going to say that they were in cahoots with Kendrick Lamar when he was the one egging him on to reply to him faster? It just doesn't make any sense. It just seems like Drake is mad because he lost, and now he's trying to attack UMG and say that they were in on it. In reality, he was the one that started it, and now he's mad because his label didn't take off the song that he was losing against. To me, it seems more like Drake's being a sore loser against his label than his label acting with actual malice, if you ask me. That's just my opinion. But it doesn't seem like Drake's lawyer looks at it that way. Drake's lawyer is trying to say that they had plotted against him, even though he knew that his house got shot up. And that whole house got shot up thing is crazy. They keep bringing up that Drake's house got shot up, bro. Let me just be honest with you, dog. Nobody knows why Drake's house got shot up. You can't just put that on Kendrick Lamar. At this point, Drake was beefing with a lot more people than just Kendrick Lamar. When you talk about Rick Ross, A$AP Rocky, The Weeknd, you talk about all of these other individuals that were beefing with Drake at the same time. And not only that, another person that's beefing with Drake lives in Canada, for example, The Weeknd. So you can't just put that on Kendrick Lamar, bro. You don't even know who actually shot your crib. That's the crazy part, is that you can't even tell the motive of the people that drive by your house because you haven't found the suspects. You haven't found the suspects. Therefore, there is no motive. So you can't say that your house getting shot up was Kendrick Lamar's fault. So running with that narrative just shows that you're scared after the beef and you're trying to blame Kendrick so that way you could get this song taken off radio. It doesn't make any sense, bro. It does not make any sense at all because you can't prove those suspects' motive. If you can't prove their motive, then you can't connect it to Kendrick Lamar. And the only reason why they're bringing up this drive-by, because that's the only physical harm that Drake had received during the peak of the beef. But if you can't prove that that ties with Kendrick Lamar and the record Not Like Us, then that's just a separate incident within itself. It says here, UMG likewise deems the public commentary cited in the amended complaint unreliable because it comes from anonymous users and contains grammatical errors, slang, and emojis. But the amended complaint does not rely solely on anonymous social media users. Instead, it cites numerous public statements expressing belief in the allegations from the press, commentators, and podcasts. So Drake's lawyer is trying to say you could shoot down the troll accounts that I had mentioned in the hyperlinks that I had mentioned that I had gotten from Twitter, but you can't deny the fact that there's people and commentators and podcasters alike that are talking about the rumors the same way that these troll accounts are. But like I said previously, commentators like Kai Cenat, who were commentating on the beef, that were listening to Not Like Us, like everybody else, still had Drake out here publicly. Drake hasn't been canceled. Drake hasn't been ostracized by podcasts or anything like that. Drake could go and do a podcast right now. They're not going to tell him no. So the fact that they're saying that it cites numerous and public statements expressing belief in the allegations from press, commentators, and podcasts is just not true. This whole argument that Drake's lawyer is trying to make, hey, bro, it's all regurgitated, it's all repeated, didn't really make any good points. Hey, man, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I wasn't fucking with it. That's just me, my opinion. Just keep it real, bro. It's hard to believe that everybody took this song as a fact when there's people who listen to the song and are out publicly rocking with Drake. Kai Cenat is a good example of that. You can name any artist that hurt the record. I think Fat Joe hurt the record and still said good things about him. Gilly from $1 Million Worth of Game had said that he had hurt the record and still thinks that Drake is a good artist. There's many people that have hurt these records and have claimed that Drake is still an artist. There's many people that don't believe that Drake's career was ruined after it. And there's a lot of famous people, podcasters, celebrities alike, that have hurt the record and don't think that Drake is a PDF file because they still openly say that they mess with him. It's hard to say that UMG had worked with actual Malice when Drake was the one antagonizing Kendrick to drop. How are they working with Malice when you're the one that was provoking the artist in the first place? A lot of things are repeated. A lot of things that they had said previously in the amended complaint are things that they're trying to say now. I just think that it's a whole bunch of things that have been said constantly by Drake's lawyer that I feel like his argument is frivolous. I don't think that it really means nothing. I didn't really see anything too different than what he said previously. A lot of arguments that he stated were things that he had brought up in the amended complaint, which we had already went over. So we'll see how the court reacts moving forward. We'll see if they'll actually dismiss the case or they'll continue. We could only tell in the near future. I just wanted to point out some of the things that Drake's lawyer had mentioned and give my opinion on them. I didn't pass the bar exam, so don't take me serious, bro. So just keep that in mind, bro. But y'all tell me how you feel about this and get back to me, man. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video, man. Peace. Keep it alleged.